The courtroom was cold in the way that only places built for judgment can be cold, not in temperature, but in feeling. Every wooden bench, every fluorescent light, every polished floor tile seemed designed to remind you of your smallness. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments where in the world are you watching from. Marcus Webb sat at the defendant's table in a wrinkled shirt he had ironed 3 times that morning, because it was the only dress shirt he owned, and he needed it to be perfect. His hands were folded on the table, but his knuckles were white. He was 31 years old and felt like he was 100. Beside him sat a court-appointed attorney who kept checking his watch. And across the aisle sat the representative of Harrington Properties, one of the most powerful real estate firms in the state, with 3 lawyers in suits that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. The charge was simple on paper: illegal trespassing and property damage at 14 Bellevue Drive, the abandoned Harrington estate on the edge of the city. The reality was far more complicated and far more human than any paper could hold. Judge Patricia Lowe entered the courtroom and everyone rose. She was 62, sharp-eyed, and had seen every variety of human desperation this city had to offer. She had also, over the years, developed a habit that bothered her clerks. She sometimes laughed at the wrong moments, not out of cruelty, but out of a kind of dark disbelief at the absurdity life handed to people. When the charges were read aloud, when it was stated that Marcus Webb, unemployed single father, had broken into an abandoned mansion to shelter himself and his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, during the worst ice storm the city had seen in 40 years, Judge Lowe laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, almost involuntary, and the courtroom went stiff with discomfort. Marcus felt his face burn. He stared at the table. Lily was not in the courtroom. She was at school, because Marcus had moved mountains to make sure she would be at school that day, sitting in a warm classroom learning multiplication tables, not watching her father be humiliated in front of strangers. Judge Lowe composed herself and asked Marcus to stand. She asked him, with a voice stripped of emotion, to explain in his own words what had happened on the night of February 14th. Marcus stood. He cleared his throat. He had practiced this speech in the mirror of the shelter bathroom at 5 in the morning for 4 consecutive days. He had planned to be composed, factual, and dignified. Instead, the moment he opened his mouth, the truth came out in a way that was none of those things and all of them at once. He said that Lily had a fever of 103. He said their rental room had lost heat 2 days before the storm, because the landlord had not paid the gas bill, a detail Marcus only discovered when he called the gas company himself. He said he had tried 3 shelters, and all 3 were beyond capacity. He said he had walked with Lily on his back through 18 inches of snow for 2 miles before he saw the Harrington estate, its iron gates slightly ajar, its windows dark. He said he had broken a basement window to get inside, and he said he was sorry for that, genuinely sorry, because he was not a man who broke things or took things that did not belong to him. He said he had found blankets in a storage closet, unused and dusty, and he had wrapped Lily in them on an old couch and held her through the night while the storm screamed outside. He said that in the morning, before the storm had even fully passed, he had gone back to that basement window and tried to figure out how to pay for it, how to fix it, how to make it right. He said the only thing he had ever wanted in his life was to be a good father. Then he sat down because he had nothing left to say. The courtroom was silent. The Harrington lawyers whispered among themselves. Judge Lowe looked at Marcus for a long moment, and then she did something that no one in that room expected. She removed her glasses and set them on the bench in front of her. She asked the Harrington representative to approach. She spoke to him quietly. He returned to his table and whispered to his colleagues, and there was a great deal of nodding and shuffling of papers. Then Judge Lowe said she needed to recess for 20 minutes, and the gavel came down and everyone stood, and Marcus sat because his legs had forgotten how to work. His attorney touched his arm and said something encouraging that Marcus did not hear. He was thinking about Lily, about whether she had eaten her lunch, about whether her fever from last winter had really gone or whether he had just convinced himself it had because he needed it to be gone. During the recess, a clerk approached Marcus and asked him to come to the judge's chambers. Marcus followed the clerk down a hallway that felt a mile long. The door to the chambers opened, and Marcus stepped inside and stopped. Judge Lowe was standing by the window, no longer in her robe, just a woman in a dark blazer, and standing beside her was a man Marcus did not recognize at first. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a simple grey coat, holding his glasses in one hand the same way Judge Lowe had held hers. Judge Lowe introduced him as the Honorable Charles Harrington III, not a representative, not a lawyer. The man himself, owner of 14 Bellevue Drive. And Marcus would learn in the next 90 seconds, an Associate Justice of the State, Supreme Court. Marcus felt the floor tilt beneath him. Justice Harrington looked at Marcus and said that he had been listening to the proceedings from an adjoining room, because he had been in the building for an unrelated matter, and the clerk had recognized his name on the docket and alerted him. He said he had listened to every word Marcus spoke. He said that his own father had been a single parent. He said the estate at Bellevue Drive had been sitting empty for 11 years because he could never decide what to do with it, and that a child had sheltered there in a storm because every official system had failed her. And he thought that meant the decision had been made for him. The charges were dropped that afternoon. Justice Harrington contacted a housing non-profit he had quietly funded for years, and by the following week, Marcus and Lily had a 2-bedroom apartment with a proper heating system and a lease in Marcus's name. Justice Harrington asked for nothing in return except that Marcus not tell anyone who had helped him, because he did not do it for recognition. He did it because a little girl had a fever in a snowstorm and her father had walked 2 miles through the dark to keep her warm. And that was the kind of love that deserved a second chance. Marcus kept that secret for 3 years. He kept it while he found work, while Lily's grades climbed, while he learned to sleep through the night without calculating whether they would survive the following morning. He kept it the way you keep something precious, carefully, quietly, with both hands. If this story moved something in you, if it reminded you that kindness is real and second chances exist and that love in its purest form often goes unseen, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it today, and subscribe to our channel Kindness True Stories, where every story we tell is a reminder that humanity, even in its darkest courtrooms, can still find its way to the light.